Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we talk about movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong.
Or right.
Or right. Ah!
Calm down, bozo.
Dude, Bozo, not a nice guy, I gotta say.
I think he's been doing too much toot.
Not a big fan of Cigar Face either, or Nipples, or any of those people. But across from me we have...
David.
To his left...
Irina.
To my right, yet again, two freaking dogs. We love them. And they did not watch Toxic Avenger, so... But just for context, we got two dogs here, and not Noah, who I'm sad will not be a part of this episode because I think he would have, gotten a kick out of this. But, and throwing himself outside of a 2-story building and into a barrel of toxic waste after watching this movie, we have...
AJ.
Ah! Was that good? I can't do the Toxic Avenger noise. What I love about the Toxic Avenger is once he becomes the Toxic Avenger, he has almost like a radio voice, except when he's fighting, it just turns into this gurgly, nothing about...
And then it goes to, don't worry, madam. I'm here to help you.
I know, it's so stupid.
Also, I like how Melvin himself isn't very articulate and kind of stupid, and I guess it made him more intelligent.
I guess we'll see. I do want to break this down later. But the movie, of course, we're referencing is the Toxic Avenger, movie that came out in 1984. And if you are expecting an articulate deep dive into the Toxic Avenger, I don't think you're going to get it on this episode. I'm just going to be completely honest. I came very low on the research level this time. We just decided off the cuff, you know what? We're about to miss out on October. What fits in with David's miniseries, those being complicated superhero movies, or superheroes, it's complicated, which I would say this definitely applies, but is also kind of horror.
We want a Halloween movie, guys. That's it. That's Reese's long-winded response here is, we wanted a Halloween movie, but
I had to say long-winded because this is not the movie you think of when you think of Halloween.
I mean, it's kind of like a goofy B-horror. It's funny.
I could see easily watching this during the summer. Just this is a summer stupid time movie.
I don't know. It's Halloween.
It's on the level of a Schwarzenegger Predator or that movie's much better.
I don't know about that.
But I don't put Predator in my October lineup of Halloween movies.
Yeah, okay.
But it's the closest thing we could get ish. I mean, we could have maybe done Spawn or something else, but
or The Crow.
Yeah. Anyway, it's Toxic Avenger, but we just watched this last night, so pretty fresh on this one and low researched. We just experienced this thing, and you're going to get some of our pretty fresh impressions on it. The movie is directed by Michael Hertz and Lloyd Kaufman, who was, I think that's a pseudonym. Another name is here he is as Samuel Wheel? I don't know which one's the first. I think Samuel Wheel's his actual... No, Lloyd Kaufman's his actual name. Sam Wheel is his pseudonym. I don't know why, but... Maybe you just didn't want to be attached to this thing. Also,
I can understand why.
No, they had both his name. They had both those names on the screen.
That makes zero sense then.
Just saying.
What's the point of having a pseudonym if you're just coming out with both names?
I don't know.
That's
get paid twice.
Well, that's like when Stephen King, he used to go by, what was that? He had two different names. He wrote darker books under a different pseudonym. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm talking about, Irina?
Richard Bachman.
Yes. Richard Bachman. It'd be like, this is a Richard Bachman book, and in parentheses, Stephen King. What's the point of that?
Oh, by the way, that's Stephen King.
He's like, I don't want you to know, but I kind of want you to know.
Yeah, because it's something people will do. Either you don't want your name to be associated with a project that you're embarrassed of, or you want, if you've gotten big enough, like Stephen King had, and you want to see if you're still good without people just basking in the aura of your name.
Or even try something different without people saying, that's not what you usually do.
Yeah, it's like, could I still be successful without those couple of hits I did? If I started again, put this thing out here.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I could see why someone would not want to be attached to this. I'm surprised this was a 2-director thing. It's all right, guys, we gotta... To really make this vision happen, we're gonna need two cooks in the kitchen. It's kind of funny because this seems like a like a singular vision type of thing. Like just like a coke-addled brain made this.
Vision.
That Coke did seem to be involved.
Yeah. You say there's any sort of vision in this? We'll see.
Yeah. The movie stars Mitch Cohen, Mark Torgl. Yeah, Torgl.
Yeah.
I derailed myself. Andre Miranda. What is with these spellings? Like they're just like slightly off from actual names, like Andree, and then Miranda, Maranda. Like
so it's Game of Thrones.
Yeah, exactly. Jamie Lannister. And Pat Ryan Jr. Movie's written by Joe Ritter, based off a story by Lloyd Kaufman, and Lloyd Kaufman, one of the two directors. So I guess it was more his brainchild. With that said, for those that are new to this show, on this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Then towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. So, David, you weirdo, why'd you pick this movie? And had you seen it?
Yeah, I have seen this movie, and I guess we should clarify how this came to be. I somehow got my way into doing this movie, did not expect to. AJ put a poll together of all these different kinds of Halloween movies we could do. This one did not come close to winning. And then I threw a hissy fit, and I wanted to do Toxic Avenger. Then everybody said, okay. And that's kind of how we did this.
Ooh, so if we can potentially get someone to hate on you a little bit, what was the movie that won?
It was Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, I think.
I don't know. Actually, well, that.
Someone out there's like, no!
They throw their phone at the wall.
Is that correct, AJ?
What we could have had. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, that was
it was that, and then it was pretty close to that, and Trick or Treat, as well as The Lost Boys.
Oh, those aren't Halloween movies.
Wow.
More than this.
One is literally centered on Halloween.
That wouldn't have been appropriate.
So yeah, but I had seen this before. I have a friend who has a very quirky aunt, and she was like, "Guys, you have to watch this movie." So we all kind of like
that voice,
and that that's what she
Guys.
like.
And then she screamed like Bozo.
Yep.
Ah! So we ended up just putting it on one Saturday, and we're like, "Wow, this is something." So
that is a fact. I mean. That is something you could say about this movie. It is something.
I did see it, and it was something.
Irina.
No experience with this whatsoever. I only know what David has said about it because of that story, and I've definitely heard of Toxic Avenger, but never watched it.
AJ.
Yeah, I think I saw this with you guys. I'm surprised you get.
Is it just Avengers?
No, I thought this was one of Reese's favorites, actually. He dressed as him in one year for Halloween.
Captain America.
Something.
Captain America, the first Avenger?
Yeah.
Well, you watched a better movie than we did.
Some men at a time.
So you might have dodged a bit of a bullet here.
Honestly, the Toxic Avenger might be the first Avenger.
Yeah, he starts as a shrimp and then turns into a beast, and then
It's true.
he's got America's ass.
There you go. Had you seen Toxic Avenger before this episode, AJ?
Actually, yes.
You had?
Somehow, possibly.
This is news to me. I thought our watch yesterday was completely fresh.
I mean, I'm sure I blocked out memories of it, but something uncovered that. I don't know. Yeah, it wasn't a complete... I was aware of this franchise somehow. It's got a cult following. It's probably one of the true actual cult followings. Because everything now is considered a cult classic when it's not really, but I don't know. Maybe it came across in research for something else, and then I don't know if I finished it or not. Probably not, but...
Yeah, we need to reclaim the cult movie status, what that actually means.
I like Princess Bride, the cult classic.
I feel like what it usually is associated with is more of an underdog type theme, you know, where it's a movie that a lot of people really like, but it never gets the notoriety it deserves.
Yeah, I think...
Yeah, if you're not performing sacrifices and, blood oaths while you're watching this movie, it's not a cult classic.
Right.
Very good point. No, but like I think we talked about Sucker Punch being it had a bit of a cult following, and I'm like, when a movie makes over 100 million worldwide and just still isn't successful, but then there's still a group of people that defend it, I don't think we should be giving a movie like that, like cult status, you know?
Yeah.
So you're saying it has more to do with
'Cause I'm
money and less
pretty
to
sure,
do with...
like, this movie, from what I saw with my brief reading up on it, was that when it was released, it was basically just unrecognized. Like, nobody even really batted an eye at all.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until later that some people started picking up watching it at, like, what is it? Not drive-ins, but I don't know. There was something showing this movie, and a bunch of people kind of formed a following around it.
Yeah, I feel like this movie should only be projected on screens in like a dark alley where like rat-infested cesspools everywhere.
Toxic waste.
Yeah, moving on. I had not seen this either, so it was. I had heard of it, but I had heard of like Trauma movies, and that's like I think it's like the production company, but it's one of those production companies that became like, it's also a style. Like it became a style of filmmaking. So Trauma was the company, but it became like kind of what. Okay, this is a bad example, but what A24 is today, A24, they curate horror movies and other indie movies, but they have this specific style that it's like you watch and you're like, that's an A24
Yeah,
movie.
it's like they've turned it into a brand. They're
Yeah.
what they end up showcasing.
Yeah, so very similar to this, but what Trauma is very trashy, grindhousey, just beat you over the head, very gory, explicit violence, nudity, just they're all exercises in bad taste, and you're either drawn to that or you're not, or you're like a weird confused mix of both, like detesting and enjoying it at the same time. So I had heard of Trauma, but I think James Gunn is actually one of the directors today who's kind of brought it back into the spotlight with his style of filmmaking. You watch something like Slither or Super, and more recently, arguably the biggest budget Trauma-esque movie that we have is The Suicide Squad. His latest movie is very much kind of pulling from this era of filmmaking, but doing it in a much more, I don't know, in my opinion, palatable, fun way. Have y'all seen The Suicide Squad? His Suicide Squad?
You made me watch it.
Yep.
Well, I'm asking generally. I wasn't. I mean, I can't just. David, I know you saw it, but
Yeah,
have
you
you all
did.
seen it?
I've
Is
seen
that the
it.
sequel?
Yeah,
No, I just saw the first one.
I highly recommend it. I actually loved it. I like it more than the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
That's a very hot take, and I will not accept it.
It is. It's a hot take, but it's not as hot as you'd think.
I don't think people like it that much.
Check the Rotten Tomatoes, my friend.
Alrighty.
Check all the critics. You can do that and you can sit in your shame.
It's Pete Davidson, so we know it's an A++.
He is in 2 minutes of that
He
movie.
made that movie. 90% on critics, 82 audience, which is, I don't even understand that. I watched it. I cannot.
Did you not like it?
It's
so
I would give
good.
it like I think 82%. That's not that's what the audience is. I kind of agree with that. 90 though?
Yeah, heck yeah.
All right, but let me see what Guardians is, just for context. Alrighty. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 has an 85% critic, 87 audience. So kind of reverse. So
Yep.
the audience liked it more than Suicide Squad, but the critics didn't. So interesting. I wonder why. Like, what made the Suicide Squad that much dramatically different of a watch? They're two superhero
Well,
movies.
it's just better is the thing.
Just like the critics were like, "Oh gosh, man, doesn't do it for me."
Yeah. Anyway, I'll keep us on track going forward. I won't have any more side tangents like that,
That's
hopefully.
all right.
But it's this episode, so I don't really care. To sum up, I had not seen this. Gosh, there's a lot of topless chicks in this. It's very like I can't talk when they're just
When
flaunting
there's-
it about on screen.
Yeah, if there's a woman introduced, you know you're gonna see her topless.
Yeah, so I had not seen this, so it was quite the experience. I had heard things about it, but not enough to prepare me for exactly what I got. So we'll just leave it at that. With that said, David, you want to give us a quick, and I mean quick, call to action.
Go on Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review. Thank you.
That was very quick. Or wherever you listen to your podcast, drop a comment or rate us, like us, whatever.
Let us know if you want us to cover more awful movies like this, or, cut the bar at Oscar nominees only.
Only Oscar nominees. We'll always do I feel like we'll always do a good
I'm
handful
joking.
of both.
People are clamoring for more trauma.
What is this movie? Like, I was in a, like, kind of, I don't know. I was slightly buzzed when I was watching this last night, and now I'm just seeing these certain scenes that I don't know why I didn't remember seeing them, like just the goat with lipstick and the sheep with lipstick. Like, what is
We were
this
having
thing?
fun when we watched.
I know,
This is a party. Like, you have a couple friends over, have some beers, drink whenever somebody says something inappropriate.
Which would be a lot.
Yeah. All right, David, you want to give us that story for
Yeah, I made something special for today.
movie? Yeah, this is a handcrafted summation of the plot.
Meet little Melvin. He's a 90-pound weakling. Everyone hated Melvin.
I'm gonna take this mop and shove it down your throat.
They teased him.
I wanna do it with you. Okay.
They taunted him. They tormented him until he had a horrifying accident and fell into a vat of nuclear waste, transforming little Melvin into a hideously deformed creature of superhuman size and strength. Melvin became the Toxic Avenger, the first superhero born out of nuclear waste. Yes, the muggers and the rapists didn't know what law and order was until the Toxic Avenger came to town.
Holy shit!
I don't know what it was, but it saved my life.
We open up on Tromaville, a city named after the movie's production company, and in this city, the best thing to do is go to the local gym and exercise in Speedos and bikinis. Our protagonist is Melvin Ferd Junko III, a weak Napoleon Dynamite-esque character who is a janitor at that local gym. He is tormented by your average 80s high school villains, Bozo, Slug, Juana, and Julie. This crew of bozos enjoys murdering children on the streets and working out till the fat falls off. Eventually, Bozo and crew chastise Melvin until he jumps out of a window and into a vat of toxic waste. After people surround him and make fun of him while he is probably dying or something, he catches on fire and runs home. This is where the fun begins. Melvin now goes through his Schmeagol to Gollum phase, becoming our tutu-wearing hero. The rest of the movie revolves around this Toxic Avenger's daily duties of saving the public from the likes of people like Cigarface and other funny cliche villains.
Nipples.
What next? Something to do with a corrupt mayor leading a crime ring, a budding romance with a way too handsy blind girl, and eventually a standoff with our fearless hero in his junkyard home. Least to say, the Toxic Avenger wins out and lives to fight another day.
Good movie. Yeah, this is
Let's start from the beginning.
Let's start from the beginning. So, by the way, I'm just gonna throw this out there. This covering, the way we cover this story will be probably just as incoherent as this movie. So just warning you there. I am completely throwing out let's stick to the order of the plot. If y'all just want to just free for all this one, I'm totally cool with it. But we can start with the beginning. We got this aerobics scene, which is like, hey, it's the 80s. Can't you tell?
With our leg warmers and
yeah, just
spandex,
unisex workout. Just everyone's going
our
at it.
leotards.
It feels like what a cliche movie nowadays trying to look 80s would do, but they were doing it in the 80s, so they were ahead of the curve.
So we got Bozo, who's just this roided out, coked out a-hole, and we've got what's his name before he becomes Toxie?
Melvin,
of course. Trying to scrub the floors.
Toxie?
That's what the name he starts to go by in like future iterations. I don't know if they actually bring up Toxie in this one, but he starts to become known as Toxie.
I think we've got a closeted fan here.
I read a few things about this. I didn't want to completely be going. Yes.
I like these stories.
Oh, it's kind of cute though, like a little Toxie.
Cut to the actual 1-for-1 size statue of Toxie in my bedroom.
There's an actual cult thing ready to go. He got his hair burning on the fireplace.
But so yeah, we have our setup. We got the Bozo and his group of bozos, as David put it. They are straight up murderers.
They're not your typical villains. They're just evil.
Well, I thought they were just like complete and total assholes who would just hit someone on the road because they're assholes. But no, they're like, oh, you got to confirm the kill. Like,
yeah,
and,
let's go kill people on the road again.
Yeah, so they reverse, and it is easily the most brutal, disturbing scene in this movie. Just the
I do love the little send-off that the kid has from his sister, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, don't forget your helmet. Be safe out there. And then just like sends him on his way at night on the road.
Yeah, like, where
I don't know where he's going.
Hey, look, man, they're in New Jersey in the 80s. That's a dangerous place to be.
still a dangerous place to be.
Yeah. Well,
could run into Snooki.
They back their car over the kid's head, and you watch it explode.
And then the girls get out and they're just loving it.
They're taking pictures.
Yeah, they're taking pictures. And honestly, this is the one part that actually looks graphically realistic and gross to me. Or like just the close up of the body on the road just looked gnarly.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah, it did.
wow. I was just like, wow, movie, this is gross.
You went there.
I don't think the movie ever tops this scene in terms of just being really unsettling in its violence.
There's one scene where they kill a dog that's pretty uncomfortable.
But I don't think it's quite as uncomfortable as this. Plus, when you see that scene of the dog when it gets shot, it is literally when it's sliding across the floor. That dog is literally happy.
Yeah.
It's just like wee.
they said in the making of that the dog was so well trained and did everything that they could ask for, and he was having a blast.
Yeah, that yes, seeing dogs die is upsetting, but in this, just the fact that you see that dog just having a good old time while it's getting shot kind of softens the blow of that, because you see it on the screen. The dog is clearly like just
having fun.
I did not get shot. I'm not in pain. I did not get shot. I am fine. Whereas this kid he's just like crawling on the ground and just a tire tread goes over his head and pops. I think they actually used a watermelon, which is kind of cool.
That is awesome.
So how are we feeling at this point so far, you guys? Are we having a good time?
Yeah.
Arena, I want to know. I want to know you, because you didn't watch it with us.
Yeah, I wasn't a part of the group when you were watching it. So my setup was
can your setup.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you say it. But it is the worst way to watch this movie. But go for it.
I've been recovering from a cold or something, and so today I was just really kind of out of it, and after work spent some time in bed, and so David's like, hey, you need to watch TOXIC AVENGER.
I wasn't going to let it slide.
Here you go. I'm going to put it on for you. I'm like, okay. And so I'm just laying in bed, kind of miserable, alone, watching TOXIC AVENGER because I have
goodbye.
to.
I was like, have fun.
It's not even like,
You're just
oh
sitting
yeah,
there
this is a fun movie. I'm just going to watch this to have a laugh. It was like doing homework on something that was just insanity and completely inane.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't the ideal experience, I would say.
Yeah. Also, this whole movie, I was trying to clock how much of it is self-aware and how much of it is just bad. And okay, it is all bad, but I want to know how much of the badness is self-aware. And I kind of came on I'm like 50-50. I think it is
100% self-aware.
But there's parts where I'm just like, why do this? This is just bad.
I think, I sent a quote earlier to the group, or to Reese at least. I'll read it out and I'll kind of explain what I
where'd you
think.
get that quote?
You
just sent me a quote without any context to it.
Well, yeah, it's a quote. I think you could figure it out. I mean, it's from an article about the TOXIC AVENGER, going over sort of the kind of cult nature of it and its self-awareness. So it said, the self-awareness of this film the film feature doesn't intrinsically limit its enjoyment. However, there is a large segment of shitty movie snobs who would disagree. So what they're saying is, because it's so self-aware, like they're trying to be a B movie, that it almost ruins it for some B movie snobs, because it almost seems like they want a movie to be
unaware of its
unaware,
badness.
and then it turns out to be bad. This one was so aware of what they were doing; it was a plan to be a bad B movie.
Okay, so I guess my pushback to that, though, is here's where the 50-50 comes in. Sometimes the self-awareness is actually legitimately funny, and I'm like, okay, I see you. But then there's times when it thinks it's clever when it's actually just bad.
What part seemed clever?
No, I don't know. Like I'm not saying it's clever. I'm saying it thinks it's clever. It thinks it's like pulling one over on us, and it's not. Like I don't know.
It makes me think of that scene where his blind girlfriend is at home and she hears someone coming in. She's like, "Who's there?" And you're supposed to feel like, there's an intruder, and it just turns out it's the Toxic Avenger coming home.
Which she'd be terrified of if she could see.
Yeah. She felt his face. It was beautiful.
Yeah. So let's fast forward ahead to when Melvin, who, by the way, his character has barely been established. All you know is that he's just this dorky guy.
He's a janitor.
He's just a dorky guy who gets picked on. That is his character.
That's all 80s movies.
I don't even know how many lines he has. It's barely any. I think he says a couple of things.
Okay, I'm gonna get to it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's so... here's what I'm talking about when I think this movie needed something more. When I think of a self-aware movie that's closer to a B level, maybe slightly... This will sound like sacrilege, but The Evil Dead.
Mm-hmm.
I know who Ash is. They establish Ash very well.
They do.
As a character, so you're on board with him. This movie doesn't even try. It's we just want to get to the toxic avenging part, but I don't even... the disconnect between him and the Toxic Avenger, this is supposed to be the same person? It's some Hulk-like transformation, but you don't ever I don't know.
It's a thinly veiled movie. It's the plot is nothing. It's literally nothing. They just want to show a guy in 4 hours of makeup running around, kicking ass, taking names. That's it. That's all they want.
And I had a good time.
It's a little reductive. I mean, you can definitely what Melvin, he's that face he makes is he's squinting his eyes. He never really has his eyes open. And then when he transforms into the Toxic Avenger, he has both eyes open.
Are you saying this is an awakening?
A shifted perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is his inner self, his true self. That's why, when I can't do this anymore.
I love that you're trying to
I love
add...
your attempts.
Well,
I
I'll
can-
text
I
you.
Have
can
you guys
see it.
read Flowers for Algernon?
Oh gosh, David,
I want
no.
to see this connection.
There is a simple-minded person who is struggling in the world, and then they have something as a catalyst that increases their intelligence to a level that helps them in the world.
Did you finish Flowers for Algernon?
Yeah, I think he gets better and everyone's happy, right?
And then...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then... and then the mouse dies and he dies.
Wait, what?
Yeah. But admirable effort on both of y'all's parts in trying to add weight to the themes of this here picture. But back to it. What did y'all think about the transformation when he throws himself out into the canister of toxic waste that's just hanging out on this truck, and he starts to have this really visceral, transformation into...
Pretty sure it's the same food suppliers as my elementary school cafeteria lunch. It's the same Jell-O.
Just the open barrels of toxic Jell-O.
That's how they make that
chopped up, minced up, green, slimy Jell-O.
That's Cisco for you.
But I thought it was funny that when he gets out of the barrel, just hordes, zombie-like hordes of people come to watch.
Just to laugh at him.
Yeah, just out of nowhere. They just come out of the woodwork.
No, they all came out of the gym.
No, there was some like just all around from all the buildings, from all the streets. Just these people just came out of nowhere to just watch him.
Reese, if you were at your office and then you just saw a kid careen out a window and then
Not everyone is watching outside their
I'm just
windows.
saying, like if you saw it, Reese, you would run out there and laugh at the poor kid on fire as well, right?
Yeah, well, no, I'm not even criticizing the movie at this point. I thought it was funny. Like I just
Yeah, David, stop being so defensive.
I'm just saying, man.
I just found it just this movie's so in your face and aggressive. Like it goes 110% in every single case, and that's another example of it. Just like, yeah, let's just have 100 people randomly show up in 15 seconds to just basically laugh at him suffering.
Hey, screw you. This guy deserved it. You know, he just tried to, make out with this goat, a sheep.
Yeah, what was that, by the way?
But then everyone shows up for the Tupperware party, just out of nowhere. So I think they saved that poor creature
That
from
poor goat.
Melvin, that predator.
Way to look at that positively. What was going on there, by the way? With
They
that?
were trying to trick him.
They were trying to embarrass someone that has no way of being embarrassed in the first place because he clearly isn't really aware of what's going on around him to begin with.
But that's a prank that takes a lot of work. Like think about the logistics of getting all that.
Someone got a sheep or whatever it was, goat. I don't know.
I honestly think it's more humiliating being the person that has to dress up the sheep than to be the one that they're trying to, I don't know, beat than the guy who's actually at the butt end of the joke.
Yeah, and they're saying there's a physical likeness from that goat to Stacy or whatever her name is.
Yeah.
You're so soft.
All right, so Toxic Avenger becomes Toxic Avenger. I think the transformation's actually really good. I'm not even kidding. I think the prosthetics that he's wearing, the way his skin bubbles up when he's in the bathtub's pretty disturbing to me. And like all the water's boiling and the whole scene of him running away on fire looks pretty good.
It's because they actually had someone on fire.
Yeah, and then he comes out making his Toxic Avenger noises, and then he's like, I don't know what happens exactly
Melvin
here, but
finally reached puberty.
oh yeah, his mom. So we have this mall. So we're introduced to the mayor first, who is obviously crooked, and we also have the first basic crime fighting sequence where a group or a gang holds up a fast food
fast
Taco
food.
Shack.
Like, what is that your go-to? Yeah, man. Let's get the.
That's where they get the big bucks.
Gotta get that taco money.
Yeah. So Toxic Avenger comes. He rips a guy's arm off. Dog gets killed. It's pretty disturbing. But there you go. Here's another thing. I know this movie's dumb and you're supposed to laugh at it, and that's the point. But I'm also like still not understanding why Melvin suddenly decided to be a crime fighter.
No, they actually did explain that.
Did they?
Yeah, there's
okay.
I don't know why they had this one small thing of dialogue where the scientists were like, he is compelled to save people.
Yeah.
Oh.
He has a base instinct to root out evil.
I love these random accents that they throw in there for like the scientist, and then one of the police officers has a strong German accent for some reason.
And is a Nazi.
Yeah.
But not
He is a
explained at
Nazi,
all.
yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I was telling David and Reese, it's like they're almost trying to be Mel Brooks,
Yeah.
the
Yep.
Teutonic Twit. And they've got two of them here, and yeah, he's like straight up doing the Heil Hitler and calls him Fuhrer accidentally and just out of place.
Yeah.
Although it is New Jersey, so.
It all adds to this just overall feeling of being in a constant dream state while you're watching this, because I'm thinking like, where are we? Because you are told where you are, but at the same time, everything is just so bizarre. Like it's an alternate reality of some kind.
Yeah. And this blind girl is the most like unrealistic like blind acting.
I love how she's actively looking away from people's faces.
I know.
I love how they're like, how can you tell she's blind? And he just waves his knife in front of her face like, oh, she's blind.
She's got the dog.
Had to be a blind to apply that eyeshadow.
Oh, and there's almost like a rape here too. Like this movie's about to go for it. Like the perfect
Not until
spot.
the Toxic Avenger gets here.
Yeah. Then again, get the arm ripping scene. He starts to beat the guy with the arm. That was kind of fun.
I did laugh at that.
Also, apparently that guy only has one arm, and they actually built a prosthetic arm for.
Oh, I can kind of see it now. He has one arm that's just sort of limp at his side. Yep.
Yep. And it kind of works for him.
Oh, I legitimately cackled when he puts the guy down and he starts making a sundae on his face. And he adds the little cherry on top. I loved that so much.
This was the part where I started thinking, oh, Reese is going to enjoy this.
That's the type of humor I wanted all throughout this thing, though. Like, you don't get it.
Yeah,
like,
it's not consistent, is it?
Yeah. Like, some of it really works as, like, a so bad it's good, and some of it is just, like, some of it is just bad. And that's where, I think we were comparing it unfavorably and favorably to Maximum Overdrive. Some similar energy there between these two. But yeah, again, so now I'm confused. Mayor's doing bad stuff. He's got cronies. They have to go get the Toxic Avenger. We're introduced to another group of baddies, Nipples and Cigar Face
and Jimmy.
Normal named guy. I think there's one Slug. He was in the first group.
Yeah, he's one of the hit and run people.
Yeah, so help me out, David. What's happening here?
Yeah, it's hard to find a really clean linear progression here. The main underbelly of this is
Well,
how many bellies does it have?
Just like the mayor.
Well, I was gonna go. It's the dirty underbelly of the mayor. I think they're trying to go for like a Spider-Man-esque like villain structure where you have the local smaller villains, you build up into these mid villains, and then the overarching villain is the mayor.
Yeah, he's like the kingpin.
Yeah,
right.
The kingpin, the guy who is doing drug deals shadily and having people killed, and we know that
he's a menace to the society.
Eventually, the Toxic Avenger will fight crime until he comes face to face with this ultimate evil. Which most of the time we see this mayor, he's just getting a massage while he's eating a sandwich and tells people to go kill the Toxic Avenger.
Well, I love how he's blatantly selling drugs to people at the fitness club. Like, it's just out in the open. Here are some syringes. Like,
he literally has 2 syringes. He's like, hey guys.
Gosh.
Yeah. So how are we feeling at this part? Having a good time?
I've had a good time throughout this whole movie, honestly.
Yeah, that's why
especially when they whip out the samurai, or not, excuse me, the katanas at the off the wall decoration at the Mexican restaurant.
It's a good thing they were there.
Like, what are those doing there? Like actual katanas.
So overall kills, I think that's something that would be fun to talk about, because the plot of this is just him fighting crime against people, and we get unique types of kills. So we have the Sunday kill where he like shoves a guy
easily my favorite,
a blender into him with ice cream,
that's
and
my
then puts
favorite
a cherry on top.
Favorite kill.
There's a guy who he wraps his hands in a fryer and then shoves him into the fryer, I guess, until he dies. Let's see, we have
ripping the arm off and hitting him with it.
Yeah, although he doesn't die yet, because Cigar Face lives to fight another day. I'm trying to think of some of the other iconic kills in this movie. He jumps into the air really high and everyone shoots each other at one point.
Oh yeah, I love that part.
That's true.
I think weirdly one of my favorite bits in this is after the taco scene. The police arrive and they're all like talking to each other, eating tacos. I was like, what do you think?
Got a taco supreme over here. Yeah, I did. I was going to say the same thing. That was good. And that's what this movie, like, in order to like capitalize on the fact, like the energy it's setting up, like this movie needed those cheesy like one-liners.
It did.
Just like the gimmicky like camp, like it has to lean into it instead of just being dumb. Like it has to actually like, knock that nail all the way in.
Yeah, it's got some true moments of like bad brilliance that if it had those sprinkled consistently all throughout, this would have been like number one, I don't know, best bad movie to watch, The
energy of this movie, if you are a person who likes bad movies, and if you're listening to this, you probably are.
Yeah.
The energy of this reminds me a little bit of Samurai Cop.
Yeah.
where it's just
An
like,
actual bad movie
well,
that's just not aware of itself. That movie's not aware.
Well, yeah, I know, but the style kind of reminds me of a trauma film. There are scenes where it's like it seems to make competent sense, and then you have these really weird close-ups, and the dialogue makes me think of those taco scenes.
It's a mix of trauma and just trying to be a crappy Lethal Weapon knockoff.
Hey, wait a minute.
Hey, wait a minute.
Hey, wait a
Four
minute.
times in a row. Love it. Okay, so fast forwarding again, we got there is a relationship between the blind girl who, by the way, we just saw it, but she has like 50 walking sticks in her, like, I don't know, they're stood up precariously on top of her fireplace, like that's the best place to keep them. Like they're just set up there to be knocked down. I thought that was funny. Do you think this is maybe I should know, or I'm not studied, but I don't think blind people have 50 walking sticks just
That's a very weird thing to ask.
bundled together.
Well, they go to Costco, Reese. I mean, if you're going to get them.
I can't find my walking stick, I'll just buy another.
I know, they probably lose them.
Yeah, they start
Well, it's just the gag. They spill everywhere. She, trips over the threshold flat on her face. I mean, it's just the dumb physical slapstick
stuff.
Yeah.
But they start to have a relationship. Obviously, she can't see what he looks like, so it's a perfect, perfect pairing.
Well, they do a consistent running gag with her accidentally grabbing his crotch at least twice in this movie.
And you're just like,
What?
why? Well, like one time she's like she's like grabbing his hand, and then she goes for his other hand, and it's like that's not even where you should be reaching to try and guess where someone's other hand might be. She just like intentionally went for the crotch, but tries to play it off. Yeah, that's dumb.
And she's like, ha ha, whoops.
Yeah, it's
something.
It is.
And if you've ever seen Fantastic Four, where the Thing, he ends up having a blind girlfriend, it feels, I guess that came later, so it could have been influenced by this movie. Who knows? But, she does the whole like touching his face, and it's like, you're beautiful.
That's right. Why'd you remind me of that?
I don't know.
That's not a very good movie.
Yeah, I like that.
Maybe
back in 2003.
Back in
I
2003.
think there was a similar kind of gag in Young Frankenstein where Frankenstein's monster he does that groan after someone gropes him or something.
Yeah.
That is a movie that I pick it up off my shelf every night, and I'm like, I should watch this, and then I watch something else. And but
I just watched it. It's one of my go-to Halloween movies.
It's so good.
It's great.
Rollin' the hay.
Why? What big knockers?
Flower booha.
All right, so stuff happens. Toxic Avenger kills more people, stops more crimes. By the way, I love the stock soundtrack to this. Arena, you brought it up. Just random insertions of classical music pieces.
Night on Bald Mountain.
Yeah, and the one I missed was the one when they're in the tent. Morning.
What's the one they always use for morning scenes in cartoons?
Oh, the Mountain King.
Yeah, there you go.
It's just like
just with these stock sounds of people snoring while they're in the tent.
It's so funny because this movie, it has flashes of looking higher production than it should. Like they've got what looks like actual tanks and a large crew, like a lot of people that they've just been able to participate in this thing. And then the special effects or the practical effects are varying levels of decent, I think, to pretty good. And then they have moments where let's just insert some stock music that we just have free access to and just put it here, or just or lines of dialogue that are just so, I don't know, obviously bad. And it's just such a baffling thing that I just can't quite, I don't know, grasp. I mean, what do y'all make of this thing? Like production wise?
I don't really know what to think. It's like they had it feels like a company that does have a decent amount of money on their hands, but they're sort of playing it as they go, where they're like, I would like to put more money in this spot. Man, we don't really need to use that much here.
Yeah.
We can get by with the basics or some stock music and whatever. So it feels very like there isn't really a huge laid out plan in this. They're sort of just going with their instincts and riffing off each other in a way.
Yeah.
So it makes me think of teenage boys that have not quite matured into adults, but they never got the chance to really explore their childish humor. And so they're doing it through this movie, basically.
This is just a sweet release.
Yeah, it is.
By the way,
Explains
David,
all the
you
TNA.
talk about great kills. We forgot the gym kill.
Oh yeah, where you have a guy who's on a leg kind of curl machine, and Toxic Avenger turns him around and drops all the weights on his head and crushes his skull in half. That was good.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that one.
What was your line? He's doing skull crushers.
Yep. He's doing. I made that joke yesterday, Irina. You'd be proud of me.
Yeah, but Irina,
I'm
you're
proud
right.
of you.
This is like an amalgamation of every like 15-year-old boy's fantasies, but put out in just the most the most untasteful way. Doesn't make us look that good. I'll say that. More topless chicks, as we're observing here.
Yeah, there's a lovely
You're
scene
15?
of a girl getting off on a sauna to pictures of the murdered child that they killed earlier in the movie.
Weird stuff like this. It's stuff like this.
It's New Jersey.
I know they do it to make the kill more satisfying, but I'm like, maybe just pull it back a little bit.
Yeah.
Do we things like that kind of take away from the goofy fun of it when it's
Right.
like death photos? Is this supposed to? Am I supposed to be laughing at?
You're
this?
like almost too.
Or-
You're getting too villainous.
Well, it's something about there being 4 of them that are like that too. Like it is a little too intense for this narrative, but like chances are you finding 4 people who all discover each other that are interested in the same kind of sadistic behavior is kind of rare. Like to that degree,
Oh, yeah.
to a murderous level, like that's. So I know this is a ridiculous movie, but it really does suspend that disbelief a little bit, and
Yeah.
I can't quite get on board with like, yeah, that's what they're really doing, and then at
That's
the same
true.
time you're like, why though? Like, why would that need to be a necessary thing for this story if the main villain is going to be the mayor anyway?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's
Like here's my argument against this movie. I'll use Samurai Cop as another example. That movie is a movie that, yes, it's definitely like not PC by today's standards, but I could never see them bringing in like let's insert some joke about child pornography or something like just a little over the line.
yeah.
Whereas this one is like, I could definitely see this movie like making a joke about child pornography or something like that. Like
Right.
it's just a little, like you're laughing and then
Yeah.
suddenly it goes. It's like someone's telling a really funny joke and then they go a little too far and then
Technically, he was using a photo of a child for physical pleasure.
do they in this?
Yes, that scene with the lady in the sauna.
Oh yeah, you see what I mean? Like
Yeah.
yeah,
there's-
you're right.
Well, they even so I think another scene that also falls under is when there is a person trying to sell a 12-year-old prostitute to him, and you're like, I don't want to see this at all.
Yeah.
but then he kills him. You're like, good, I guess. I'm glad he killed the bad guy, but like,
Yeah.
But then he weirdly
I don't know.
leads her
David
back to
Bowie.
the limo and gets in the limo with her, and then you don't really know what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think as I'm talking it through, I figured out my perfect metaphor for this. It is literally that guy who's telling a really funny joke and then starts to go too far and he just
Keeps going too far.
Yeah,
Yeah.
loses the audience because it's like, oh, you started to bring Nazis into the mix and now children and now all these other things. And dude, just stop. You should have stopped while you were ahead.
you had me at
Like
the
this-
taco stand, man.
No,
This
but
is basically a continual, like, visual, well, not really, like the aristocrats joke, but just someone spiraling and not going anywhere with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it has these occasional moments that are legitimately funny that I wish like that's the movie that it was more consistently throughout.
Right.
Because this really could be a contender for one of those like so bad it's good movie nights, even though this one is self-aware.
This
Yeah, I would
fits.
definitely see this movie, on like Mystery Science Theater 3000
Right.
or something like that.
Yeah. Exactly. to quickly wrap up the plot, we have that they wake up in the tent. I forget what preceded that. They were on the run for some
So
reason.
one thing we left out that leads to the ending is the Toxic Avenger finds this old lady at a laundromat and murders her. And then people are like, whoa, he killed an innocent old lady. And it turns out from the mayor later that she wasn't. She was apparently a white supremacist and is wanted for all sorts of
Human
things.
trafficking,
Yeah,
I think.
all sorts of bad
Yeah.
I want to
things.
know how he knew that.
Yeah, and
But-
and so they're like, well,
That goes back to the base instinct of like tracking down evil
Yeah.
people that they didn't really explore. They just
Yeah,
said
at
it.
all.
so
And that's another criticism I have of movies like that. Like, if you know you're bad, it still doesn't excuse, like, I don't know, just basic fundamental.
Like, just refusing to explain something
Yeah,
that's
like-
presented. Yeah.
And then they're just trying to avoid any critic by saying, like, we know it's bad.
Yeah, it's just bad. That's what we meant.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm very conflicted on this my score is going to be, I have no idea, honestly.
I do.
So he's on the run with his blind girlfriend. They find a tent, I think, and they wake up.
That's at his house. They're not on the run. They're just at his house sleeping. And then they somehow, the whole town sneaks up with tanks to kill him.
No, they're in the tent.
Remember,
they're
they
in
went to the tent.
Yeah. I thought that was his tent.
Well, maybe it's his tent, but it's not his
is.
He said
house.
his house.
Well, he doesn't have a house.
Well, he didn't move out of the nuclear waste field that's just in the
Yeah.
middle of
Yeah,
town.
but I love how
But-
they all sneak up on him. They're all just hell bent on, we're gonna kill this guy, and a couple words are said, and everyone is convinced. Like, no, this guy's like, David. You're probably better at explaining what happened here.
Oh yeah, I paid attention. So when that happens, all the people he saved were like, "No, we love the monster. He saved us."
Do you remember what he said? What was said, Irina? Do you remember what was said? Like, what happened that convinced them? Like, did the Toxic
Oh.
Avenger say something?
No.
So a bunch of people kind of ran out in front of the line of fire, and they're like, "No, he's a good monster," or whatever. And then it just kind of convinced all the cops and everyone. They're just like, "Yeah, they're right," and they put down their weapons and wouldn't listen to the mayor.
Yeah.
But the mayor's like, "I'll do it myself," or something.
By the way, if there's anything that we can lose out of any movie, out of all movies, is just crowds that just suddenly start to change their mind and agree with something, and just
Yeah.
are vocally like, "Yeah," you know,
I'm
like,
Spartacus.
yeah.
I get
think
so tired of that trope.
I do think you got it a little mixed up because those people didn't change their minds. I'm pretty sure everyone that was there.
Everyone
Was
already
The National
agreed.
Guard did.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
well,
they
I
did.
know the National Guard did, but the average people that stood, like, they all had shirts on that
Well,
were
don't
like,
you think it's even more ridiculous that the National Guard would be the ones that are convinced to change their mind?
Yeah, that was
yeah,
the
that
more
one is the one
weird
that's a little weird.
Yeah, and then the mayor's like, "Oh no, we gotta make this happen." He tries to shoot him, and he does shoot him. He does shoot him,
Yeah, he kind
Yeah.
of fires off at him a few times, but
and then he's
Suddenly
exposed.
bulletproof.
And he's exposed as bad.
well, he's let's see if you have any guts, and he pulls
yeah,
out his
rips out his
guts.
I think that's this movie's best known line.
Well, I think the thing that confuses me with that part is that all these people rallied behind the monster saying he's a good monster. They don't know anything about the mayor's background at this point.
Yeah,
But they're just okay with him killing their mayor and cheer when he reunites with his girlfriend. I don't know. There's just
Again, another thing where this movie's like, yeah, we know we're bad, but
Whatever.
Is that good that you know that?
It's okay.
Is it good that you know that you're bad? I don't know. This movie's so stupid. All right, end of movie. Pretty much. Roll credits. Am I missing anything?
I do like him, like, peeing on the wall in that alley. That was
Oh, with like the
yeah.
toxic,
Just
huge
guys
guys
working with a fire hose there. Yeah, just
Yeah.
toxic stuff pouring out there. And
Shrek pee. All right, there's your movie. We did the best we could. I mean, we probably could have done better, but I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think that I am not proud of the level of research I did for this or my knowledge on this one. It's easily one of my least prepared works, so I apologize if that affects the episode in any
I
way.
mean, you did watch it like 3 times in a row. So I don't know what
True.
you're talking
I
about.
did. I did watch it and decide it was my favorite movie of all time. And once we got off, the call, I watched it 2 more times and stayed up till 4 a.m.
Also, Marissa Tomei's first movie, because that's just something we need to say. Just
So
interrupt everything.
random. Yeah.
Aunt May has a dark history.
She really does. If you look up Marissa Tomei's filmography.
It's so funny the parallel, her being in this and Jennifer Aniston being in like Mac and Me or something in one.
Trolls,
like
wasn't?
I think it was Mac and Me.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, for like a split second.
She worked at the McDonald's.
There's another actress I'm forgetting that was also in one of those really bad movies for like a split second, but I can't remember who. That is Toxic Avenger, the story portion at least. We're going to take a quick break. And on the other end, we're going to get into our brief reviews with numbered scores, what critics thought, do some box office, and close out with some franchise talk. So we'll see you then. Welcome back. Let's talk Toxic Avenger, or the Toxic Avenger, rather.
That's good. Clarify.
This time we're doing it a little different. We're just going to call out names, and you will announce your score for the film live as we speak. We do not have numbered scores written on little pieces of paper this week, but we're still ready.
Yeah.
David, who do you want to shout out to, or who do you want to call out to first?
You know, I'm going to let myself go first.
Well, how generous.
I just figured
So you, David.
me, David, myself. And I'm going to give this movie a 4.5. I want to start us off with a baseline, just in case people have a hard time coming up with a number for this one. You could easily say this is worse than the worst movie we've covered, which is Neverending Story 2. But that movie just sucked and is not worth watching. This one...
David, can I reassure you, I think that movie might eternally be at the bottom of the
worst.
barrel. Yeah.
Man, Irina, congratulations.
That
on
movie
one.
was just so soul-crushingly awful that...
Yeah.
Well, the problem with that movie is it was not entertaining.
Exactly.
In any
That's
way.
the problem.
It
And
was
that's
just...
why I'm giving this one a 4.5, is that it has an entertainment value.
Yeah.
And you could even give it higher if you found more merit in that entertainment. But as we kind of talked about, there are some over-the-line moments for me. It's constantly entertaining. I mean, it's just, it doesn't always land. So I was never once bored watching this, but the enjoyment was higher and some points lower than others. And this is a thankfully short movie. It's an hour, 22 minutes.
Mercifully, I think is the word.
I was looking for it while I was talking. Thank you, mercifully. I could watch this probably once a year if we just got a group of us to have some drinks and just like drink anytime someone says something that's not PC. It's
Take a shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, you'd be drunk 30 minutes into this thing.
Probably before that. It's definitely that type of movie. It works for me. And I think 4.5 is fair. It doesn't deserve to be in the upper echelon, but it's not terrible. So I guess we'll leave it at that. Next up, I'm going to go with AJ.
All right. I got to figure this out. I'm trying to remember what my other very low scores are just to not insult
I think
them.
Maximum Overdrive and Soldier and Neverending Story 2 were some of your really low ones.
Yeah, and Mute, actually.
Mute as well. Yeah. Mute.
It's tough.
Gross.
So let me talk this out here. On a scale of 1 to 10, this movie is doo-doo. Yeah, I mean there is entertainment in this. I mean, some of the actions and the punches and stuff, like the guy hitting, or him, the Toxic Avenger Toxie, hitting that guy with his own arm, and they're like the taco bit, and I don't know. There's stuff in there that could have been like on the right track potentially. I just think that the intention of this movie, I just feel like this was maybe okay. So Adam Sandler movies, the Happy Madison movies, he makes those admittedly, self-aware that they are not, super in depth or high-minded movies, but he has fun making those movies with his friends, and so it's a fun project for him. People get laughs out of it, and some more than others. and it makes money. Like, so he does that. This, I feel like this was like a project for these producers and stuff. Same thing, like wanted to have some fun with their friends, but then it just devolved into nut punches and some TNA and, you know, I don't know. Like it, okay. At the end of the day, what is this about? You know, it's trying to imitate some other comedic forms that just doesn't fall short. I really think if this like went full camp and had some just one-liners left and right, then it would be more in the category of, okay, you know, drink and have a drinking game and watch this with friends. But as it is, like I'd rather, if I want to watch just something terrible, I'll pull on, you know, MST 3K and have some awesome commentary, just, you know, absolutely trashing something, which you can do with your friends, admittedly. But otherwise, you know, if you just want dumb action, then there's that too. And if you want just like 80s, you know, feeling movies, there's plenty of stuff. And so, I don't know, like this movie exists. That's the thing.
It does.
Actually, you know, I'll give it some positive here. This movie probably got someone a paycheck and put food on some kid's plate. You know, their dad came home from operating the boom and stuff, and you know, he may not have his self-respect, but you know, that kid ate that day. Put a roof over someone's head, so there's positive merit there.
There you go. Way to look at it.
So
positively.
let's say I'm just looking at my other movies. I'm going to say 1.5. I'm going to bring it down to the bottom. It's not a good movie, guys. It's just, I mean, there's fun. Yes, there is sometimes. It's just not good. And I think it'd be insulting to some of the other movies I, you know, really derided if I gave it any higher.
Yeah.
Just on trying to be as objective as possible. I don't know.
Just go with your heart,
Yeah.
man.
1.5.
He got that 0.5 there, you know?
All right.
bad.
Well, let's go.
For putting a roof over some kid's head.
There you
And
go.
tacos on the dinner table.
what did you give Neverending Story to?
I gave that a 2. I was one of the apologists for Neverending Story 2, if you can call it that. I did give Mute a 1.5.
AJ, I think you and I were the ones that gave Neverending Story 2 a 2 because, and
Right.
I think I'm quoting almost exactly what we said. Is it had a basic Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 plot structure that was like it is technically a movie that functions.
A cohesive story that, you know, there's an A to B, and there is some little bit of a nostalgia factor here where this is not the part of the 80s that I want to remember.
Yeah.
New Jersey? All right. Next up, let's go with Reese.
I'm right there under you, David. I'm at a 4.
Whoa.
Yeah, with this one. Okay, so I am much more easily won over by camp.
Yeah.
Like, I love campiness. If this movie had turned the dials down from 11 to 10 on just like kind of the like gross, like, ew, you went there factor, like that, this is an exercise in bad taste, but it also wants to be like a campy good time when sometimes it's just nasty. There's times when it's just nasty and I'm like, I don't need that in my camp. And I know that's the appeal of trauma films to some people. They like that just everything in bad taste type cinema. Not for me. It's just not for me. I really perk up when this movie is like goofy, campy in the right ways, which does happen sporadically throughout this. But then it'll be followed by something that's just like, ew, did you really need to go there, movie? I don't know if we needed that. So it kind of takes away from it being this pleasant, goofy watch that I wanted it to be, and just takes things into just a slightly dingier, dirtier, grungier, gross territory that's not
toxic.
Yeah, toxic. There you go. So in a way, this is maybe a biased review because I know some people, they're getting exactly what they want out of this, and that's why it is a true cult classic. For me, it's just I like my campiness to be a little more on the like the just slightly safer side. I need it to be slightly more sanitized than this. I know that maybe that reflects poorly on what I'm looking for, and maybe
You're
you shouldn't.
snob.
Yeah. Maybe you shouldn't take my review or take my recommendation if you're looking for a movie to be just cranked up to 11 in the bad taste areas.
So this movie having some self-awareness, that's a positive.
Yeah, I think it's a positive. It's to some extent, like, because sometimes it works in its favor and sometimes it totally backfires. I will not add this movie to our bad movie catalog, and maybe I'll rewatch it. I don't know. Honestly, I probably won't. But it's just not quite. It's just not quite there. It's exactly in the place that Maximum Overdrive is in. It's when I watched that movie. While I laughed more at this one for sure. Maximum Overdrive is a slightly more well-constructed movie, though, so that's why they kind of balance out.
I wouldn't say well-constructed.
No, but the sequences and everything comes together more in like a traditional movie format, whereas this one's just so sporadic and random. But they both have this, like, oh, you were almost there to the right level of camp, but just didn't quite hit it for me, and for different reasons. Like, Maximum Overdrive needed to be a little more insanely ridiculous, and this one needed to, like, just tone down the grossness a little bit. And when I say grossness, I don't mean, like, the gore. I mean are you
thinking, like, exploitative type stuff?
No, like the photographing of the dead kid's body and then, like, pleasuring yourself to it. I'm like, okay, who's watching that? And that's like, oh, man, I'm so glad this was in here.
It's like, You're trying to make the characters really evil and therefore worthy of death, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean.
It's also I really don't like whereas the parts of the self-awareness does work in certain areas, it doesn't work in the areas where it's like, oh, well, we didn't explain this because we know we're a bad movie. Like that's not it is self-awareness, but it's also self-awarely being lazy. So I don't know if that's good, you know? But again, I laughed at this movie a couple times, and I laughed with it a couple of times, which says something about it. There's intelligence in the filmmaking here, as much as you watch this movie at face value and you think this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. There is actual, like, behind the camera intelligence in the writing and the delivery of certain aspects of this movie that, like, really worked. And it just made me wish the whole thing was more like that. Like, aside from the dog killing and the almost rape moment, just the whole fast food sequence is just so hilarious. Like, just as I said, legitimately laughed at the scene where he's making a sundae on the guy's face. It was just so, and just the nice little cherry on top. Like, I just pouring the chocolate on the ice cream and then the cherry on top is just so good. Like, such a perfect little microcosm of a moment in this movie that I just wish permeated it throughout the entire runtime. So that earns it a 4 out of 10 from me.
Alrighty. Well, we got one person left. Irina.
It's sad when the 4s are, like, positive.
Yeah. Because I wasn't part of the fun group experience that was this movie, I have to give it a 1.5.
Nice. Hey, we're in two camps here, even though we're all negative still.
Yeah, the half point above a 1 is mostly because there were some funny moments that I felt were, like, intentionally funny, and so I give them points for that.
They actually intended for us to laugh at that.
I know, like, I think the thing that I just really can't get behind is when I watch movies where I really feel that what's that thing they say about men? It's men think about sex every 7 minutes or something like that.
That is this movie.
I think it's every 7 seconds.
Well, it's like you are watching this movie and then, like, all right, we don't really know what to do here. Send in a lady and we'll have her like take her top off or something.
Oh my gosh.
It's been 7 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
We gotta have another topless scene.
another lady come in and have sex with a guy or something. And
this movie is social commentary.
Honestly, Irina, I think you just thought of a good thesis statement for this movie. Just this is a kid's brain, or a boy's brain, where it's just like
brain.
Toxic
action,
masculinity.
violence, risque stuff, then boobs, then action, violence, risque,
More boobs.
Well, it's like when you
see, Lucy, you're blind, so you don't understand this.
There's something to be said about the female characters in this. There's one innocent lady, but even that innocent lady isn't really exempt from any kind of exploitation, because even in that moment she's about to be raped, or her blouse is ripped open and we can still see down her shirt even though her character is blind and isn't aware that she's exposing herself. It's like you're getting that eye candy without feeling too guilty about it, or making her seem slutty for it,
I'm surprised you didn't enjoy that scene, Irina.
There's just an aspect that feels very gross to me, that it's a perspective of women in general in this kind of film where they're kind of seen as animals that you either need to protect or need to put down.
Or have sex with.
Yeah, and so essentially putting them down, where the other two prominent female characters in this were murdered or killed off because they were both promiscuous and evil, admittedly. It just doesn't feel good to fully enjoy a movie where that is just forefront in my mind, like I'm observing that. So I really can't give it much more. And I wasn't a part of the viewing experience, so I didn't get to laugh with it. And I have trouble laughing at something that feels like a skewed perspective on men and women relations.
Well,
so
honestly, that's I think.
Yeah, but he's wearing a tutu.
Yeah, he's feminine.
Honestly, I think we need that side of this of criticism, though. This is literally a movie you can't watch by yourself.
This is what this was the point I was getting to. Was I don't mind it in certain cases, but here the point of the film gets to a point where it's like, oh yeah, the nerdy guy that's been helping people, he's a good guy, he does everything right, he kills the bad guys, blah blah blah. There's a theme where you're thinking, yeah, but good prevails, and that seems like the message they're trying to put in there. But at the same time, they're still enjoying that gritty, gross aspect during the whole beginning of the film. And they're just sort of excusing it by introducing a heroic character to dispel all that.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but you still immersed yourself in those kind of depraved moments.
You're trying to excuse the moments you're taking pleasure in.
Exactly.
Is he really
and you created
even
your
a
own
hero?
solution. Yeah.
Is he really even a hero if he's not even making a conscious choice to avenge evil?
Yeah,
like
it's just instinctive.
Instinctively compelled to like root it out and not even in control of it.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that bothers me the most, is that you still went there. You still had a woman pleasuring herself to the image of a dead kid that was ran over by a car, but then excusing the fact that you filmed that and thought up that scene and wanted to showcase that on the screen explicitly by saying, yeah, but we have the Toxic Avenger who kills evil and whatever just based on instinct.
The evil you came up with.
That doesn't excuse the content for me.
Yeah, it's a movie that it wants you to leave like pumping your fist at how dumb awesome it was.
Yeah.
But you just kind of like, you get out of this movie, you're like, I kind of need to take a shower.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't really feel like watching this again.
It's an exploitation film that exploits the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of a trope or something like that. Yeah. Although, I mean, so I don't know, Reese, you kind of played with the watching it again and seeing how you felt about it. I mean, this guy does have some Yeti-ish mannerisms, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
Is this rewatchable for you?
Yeah, I mean,
he did throw a frisbee or something with those kids in that montage.
Yeah, it was close to
wasn't a
playing football.
If
but
Brendan Fraser was in this movie, it'd be a 10.
or at least a 7. What you gave Mummy 2 and the Dragon
that's
Emperor.
right, I did.
Yeah. AJ, you want to crunch those numbers for us and give us some context as to how low this falls on the totem pole?
How low can it go? All right. Let's see. We have a group average, sans Noah, for the Toxic Avenger at a 2.9.
Wow, that's pretty low.
Puts it below Maximum Overdrive, which was mentioned.
3.1, right, for that one? I don't know why I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, good job. Queen of the Damned, 3.3. Mute, 3.5. And then above it, below it, we have Highlander 2 Electric Boogaloo, 2.7. And the never-ending story, our caboose, 1.5.
And it will never be toppled.
Queen of the Damned got gypped.
No, it did not. You need to watch that movie again.
David, you need to watch that again.
Forsaken, because I'm not the only one.
We need to have a double feature of Queen of the Damned and Blair Witch Project 2. They both have that
Similar
new metal makeover.
Or at least Catwoman. That's another one.
I have such fun.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
No. Hey, Jesus. Okay, so 2.9. Good job, Toxic Avenger. Almost made it to 3. So that's applause worthy, I feel like. Moving on to critics. What did critics think of
this movie? Had critics?
And I'm just going to lay it out here. It's going to surprise you. This movie, and granted, there's only like 20-ish reviews for this movie from critics. Usually movies range from...
They're the cult.
Yeah, 50 to 300 reviews, but this one only has 20. So I feel like the critic base is a mix of older and new reviews. I think it's mostly new because this has been like reclaimed cult classic, so kind of people know what they're getting. But it has a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes with an audience score of 63%.
Wow.
Yeah, so minorly positive on Rotten Tomatoes. Again, I do want to say it's a very small critics pool, which I'm not trying to dilute its success here, but it's
most of the critics that hated it they wanted to forget it entirely and didn't even go to Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah. Like I bet you the only movies that we've covered that have close to this this amount of reviews are some of the later Highlander sequels, probably. Yeah. On Metacritic, the movie settles into a lower score with a 42 out of 100 and an audience score of 7.6. So far, audiences have been across the board generally positive. And on IMDb, the movie is lower at a 6.2, so almost into the bad zone there on IMDb. Honestly, surprising to me. I'd heard of the Toxic Avenger. I knew what I was getting into. I think people are going to... If any of our listeners have actually seen this, they're going to criticize us for being a little too harsh on this one and maybe not quote unquote getting it, which I completely understand. If we don't get it and this is totally your thing and there's something we're missing, it just wasn't for me, and I don't think it was for us.
Yeah,
but I'm not gonna.
There are people out there that would pay movie to watch this movie. David.
I did.
You did throw a fit.
No, I think what he's saying is I literally spent money. I rented this movie.
That is true.
And I put it on 3 times in 24 hours.
Hey, you helped put a roof over some kid's head.
So I do think that's the... I think that's a little bit of a clue as to why this movie does well is when did you watch it for the first time, David?
Like 2013, 2014, something like that.
Yeah, so I think that movies like this really seem to succeed with groups of young people, that are watching terrible movies because it's different from everything they've seen before. Like, that's around the same time I watched Evil Dead for the first time, and that has some scenes that I would criticize in the same way because it is a little exploitative of women. Yeah, exactly.
Vine rape scene.
That scene is completely unnecessary. But there is something about being in that age group where you're watching B movies or you're watching cult classics, and it kind of like, I don't know, it creates this fascination with grindhouse films and things like that, where it's just not what you see produced in Hollywood or in public, and nobody really talks about it. So there's something about it that's taboo and enjoyable, and you're laughing and you're with a group. So I think I'm older than the ideal age group I would have been to enjoy this. So I think that's part of the problem is I can't really connect to that feeling right now.
Yeah. Well, even in our group, we laughed at the ridiculousness of it at times, but it wasn't like a unanimous, like fist pumping, raucous experience. So yeah, I don't know about this one, guys. But I appreciate those out there who find enjoyment with it. We're not gonna, as the cool kids say, yuck your yum. So, but yeah, that's Toxic Avenger. Good, surprisingly decent reviews, I'll say, like higher than what I would have expected for this movie. Moving on to box office. Interesting box office here. It's going to be kind of hard to do. The movie is technically a 1984 movie, but it had its brief theatrical window in 1986. With a budget at the time of $500,000, that translates to $1.4 million in today's dollars. What do y'all think this movie did the inflated amount box office today? I'll start with you. Actually, David, since it's your miniseries, I'll do you last. So, AJ, let's start with you.
2
million?
Yeah.
$2.
There's a $2. I mean, I'd believe it. Irina?
1.5.
David?
5.
All right. I'll give you the original total. It made $800,000 in the year of 1986, so a little more than its budget. That translates to $2.3 million.
Right, I think that's AJ.
So AJ, you got the gold there for the old Toxic Avenger. Congratulations.
Oh, I don't want it.
Yeah, and
I think we mentioned yesterday when we were watching it. This seems like something that like Alamo Drafthouse would play, one of those like old campy. And then you have select people that come out and see it, and
I'm sure they play
it in some of their like clip reels when they're saying "don't talk" or something like that.
Talk.
It definitely has that, or clips of this are probably played leading up to some other movie.
Yeah,
like there's a Toxic Avenger.
They probably have before.
This is very much one of the weirdly most successful of the extreme cult. I'll just call it extreme cult because what cult classic has become is somewhat a perversion of what it should be. But the Toxic Avenger is something even I knew, like when you see the makeup or the look or the Toxic Avenger somewhere just out of context, I knew it was the Toxic Avenger, even though this movie barely made any money. It has this weird relevance that I think almost seeps into the mainstream, but still is just punk rock enough to maintain that actual cult status. So that's kind of this one kicked it off. I think it was a surprise that it even got as high as it did box office wise. This is something that normally just I don't feel like would play at all. But there you go. I think it and I'm not basing this off of anything, but I think this is the main standard bearer for Troma. I don't think any of their other movies were as widely recognized as this one. I'm guessing, but there's probably other ones that had better box office runs, but I think this is the most enduring like figurehead of Troma films. So it did spawn a franchise, which this is going to be the first time we don't go into the sequels. I just think because I don't even think we need to. It's not.
Well, they were direct to home media, weren't they?
No, they actually. I looked at this and I was part of my OCD brain was like, maybe we should talk about them, but I'm like,
we're talking about them right now.
Yeah, we're talking about them right now, and it's not a Highlander situation where I was like really on the fence, but eventually decided to cover them. This is even lower on the totem pole, where I feel like the first Toxic Avenger isn't even at nearly close to the level of hit that the first Highlander was. Like this movie made less money than the fourth Highlander movie. It's just so low on the franchise level that it managed to crank out 3 additional low budget sequels. So I'll just give you the titles here. So we've got So the first one came out in 1984, or it came out in 1986, was made in 1984, The Toxic Avenger. Then we got the sequel, The Toxic Avenger, just titled Part 2, that came in 1989, so 3 years later. Then came The Toxic Avenger Part 3, The Last Temptation of Toxie. Also in 1989, which the title is almost enticing enough to just want to watch it. And then in 2001, took a big break there. We got Citizen Toxie, The Toxic Avenger 4, which that one actually also has a fresh critic rating, although I bet it's like only 5 critics or something. Let me click on it real quick.
No Toxic Avenger Christmas special?
No, unfortunately. 9 reviews, with a 67% fresh rating for Citizen Toxie, The Toxic Avenger 4, and a 65% audience score. So that looks like it, from what I can tell, that's the one that kind of recaptures some of the quote-unquote appeal of the first one, though it does, as I'm perusing the reviews for Part 2, some people seem to enjoy this one, even though it has a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. Last Temptation of Toxie, though, the third one has 0 critic reviews. Like, nobody saw this thing. But when I looked at the box office numbers, they were all very, like, in the same ballpark as the first Toxic Avenger, like, slightly lower at around, like, 500,000, 600,000. So it's been able to maintain throughout its franchise that consistent, extreme niche audience that just is like, I'm here for this. And in a way that kind of adds to the appeal, or it makes it, as I said, is even more just punk rock to like Toxic Avenger, because so few others are like it or are even aware of its existence. So that's your franchise there. There's actually another one coming out that's apparently completed, though I haven't seen any like footage or trailers or anything like that. Everyone thought it was kind of a reboot, but it's apparently not. It's perhaps a continuation. And that movie is... Yeah, that movie was... It says it's slated to come out in 2022, but we're running out of time here, and I'm not
2022.
I'm not seeing anything about it, so maybe it's just going to slip into next year. But that is apparently coming out, so look out for that other Toxic Avenger movie. So, a surprisingly long-running franchise.
Well, you know who's going to star in it, right? As the Toxic Avenger?
No, I don't.
Peter Dinklage.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Maybe this one will be like the first one that actually gets into like semi-mainstream.
Might.
That's interesting.
Yep.
I'm going to have to dig deeper into that.
See, I don't understand though. Like, what's original about this movie? What is the identity of the Toxic Avenger? If you're just doing a guy that can beat up people because he gets powers from, falling nuclear waste, that can be anything.
I genuinely think the unique spice to this concoction is how distasteful it is. Like, the few movies go to the lengths that this one does to like put you off and like just push it a little too far.
Yeah, the toxic about it is not necessarily the toxic. It's just that's the character of the film, I guess, of the franchise. I don't know.
Yeah. Like, I feel more gross watching this movie than I do something like Saw, which is literal torture porn.
I just don't, thinking of, out of a potential studio's wallet, I don't see money in this property. I don't know.
I don't know. As I said, we all know. The thing is, I can't imagine they made a new one with a huge budget. And with streaming being as big as it is right now, I would... so there's a movie that came out recently called Terrifier 2, which is... I've heard it's a good movie, but it's a movie that has no right to be like a big success. Yet here it is in theaters, really proving itself, showing really good legs. And it has that same like punk energy, like in your face, like we're going to slightly offend you. And it's already racked up like 5 million plus at the box office. And it's going to be a big streaming success. So if they can like draft off those fumes or do something similar, I could see Toxic Avenger, a new one, potentially being some variation of successful.
I have something in regards to this.
All right.
From IGN. Based on the 1984 cult classic of the same name, here is the synopsis for the upcoming movie. Set in a fantasy world following Winston, a stereotypical weakling who works as a janitor at Garb X Health Club and is diagnosed with a terminal illness that can only be cured by an expensive treatment that his greedy, power-hungry employer refuses to pay for. After deciding to take matters into his own hands, into his own hands and rob his company, Winston falls into a pit of toxic waste and is transformed into a deformed monster that sets out to do good and get back at all the people who have wronged him. Jacob Tremblay recently joined the project as Winston's son, with the legendary Kevin Bacon on board as the villain.
Interesting.
Wow.
So they've actually got a cast. Who knows? I'll watch it. I'll watch it. At this rate,
cast is going to have 1 degree or 1 degree of Kevin Bacon.
Oh my gosh, guys!
That's
here's
their
the
biggest.
list. Toxic Avenger stars Peter Dinklage, Elijah Wood, Juliet
No,
Davis,
please no.
Taylor Page, Kevin Bacon, and Jacob Tremblay, and making
All right, clearly this cult has some influence.
yes, it does. Well, we knew it had influence, and actually,
Well,
Elijah Wood.
yeah.
That is not a surprise, because if you know Elijah Wood,
The budget.
He founded Spectralite, which I think it's called Spectralite. But he funds and produces his own line of very
Right.
niche horror films that are just
Yeah.
exploitative in a weird way, like a Mandy. I don't know if y'all saw that movie, but that was produced by him.
that was a great movie.
Yeah. So Elijah Wood is the one person on that cast list that does not surprise me. All the other ones do.
Kevin Bacon and Peter Dinklage.
Though a little bit. Like, I am
Just
honestly
from
kind
a
of surprised.
budget standpoint.
Yeah. Elijah Wood, I could be like, he would be just honored to be a part of it because that's the type of guy he is. So I could see them getting him for super cheap. But yeah, that's cool. I'll watch it. I will watch it. I'm going to give it a shot. I think we should watch it.
We should.
And if it is any degree of good, maybe cover it
Yeah.
in the future.
I like it.
So we'll see. We may come back to this franchise. We're just not going to talk about any of the meat in between these two bread things.
No one deserves it. And also, AJ brought up the Christmas special, like no Toxic Avenger Christmas special. Well, you know what? If it comes out in December, it might be a Christmas special for us.
I don't think it'll come out yet. We haven't seen anything on it. Anyway, rambling on too long. Next week, we will be talking about Hancock. Even though we already recorded that episode, we're trying to get this episode out before Halloween, so it will precede Hancock. Obviously, y'all don't know this. I'm kind of explaining this to my other podcasters because
Yes, thank you.
came up with this idea on my own. But it has to come before Hancock. So
I mean, I figured if we wanted it on Halloween, it would have to.
yeah. So Toxic Avenger next week. Hancock. It's already in the bag. It's a good episode. So look forward to that. And we will see you then. Goodbye, Toxies.
Officer O'Clancy, take care of this toxic waste.